challenge. Supreme War Chieftain Zexthor stood upon the crystal observation deck of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest. His 4 muscular arms crossed behind his back as he gazed out at the vast armada that stretched endlessly through the void of space. 10,000 warships moved in perfect synchronization, their dark hulls gleaming with the purple and gold insignia of the Kitherian Empire. For over 3 millennia, these ships had carried the banner of conquest across the galaxy. 847 star systems had fallen before their might. 847 civilizations had learned to bow before the Kitherian understanding of warfare. The Empire had grown so powerful that most species surrendered upon seeing their ships approach. War Chieftain Zexthor was 7 feet tall, with skin like polished obsidian and 4 powerful arms that could crush steel. His people were born warriors, shaped by evolution on a harsh world where only the strongest survived. They had turned warfare into an art form, with rules, ceremonies, and traditions that stretched back thousands of years. War Chieftain, his second-in-command, Battle Master Krulthak, approached with measured steps. The scouts have returned from the Rim territories. They bring news of a new species. Zexthor turned, his glowing red eyes focusing on the younger warrior. Tell me of these creatures. They call themselves humans, War Chieftain. They inhabit a small blue world they name Earth. Our analysis shows they are a young species, having achieved space travel only recently. Their technology is primitive compared to ours. The War Chieftain made a sound that resembled laughter. How many ships do they possess? Perhaps 2,000 in total, War Chieftain. Most are exploration vessels or cargo transports. They have fewer than 300 ships designed for combat. Zexthor nodded slowly. These numbers meant little to him. The Kitherian Empire had faced enemies with larger fleets and superior technology. What mattered was understanding, discipline, and the ancient art of warfare that his people had perfected over centuries. What of their military traditions? He asked. Krulthak looked puzzled. War Chieftain, they seem to have no unified military tradition. Their world is divided into many nations, each with different fighting styles. Some prefer large formations, others use small strike forces. Some focus on long-range combat, others train for close quarters. It appears chaotic. The War Chieftain felt a familiar mixture of disappointment and disgust. Another species that had learned nothing about the true nature of war. They would fall quickly, just like all the others. Prepare the challenge of honor, Zexthor commanded. We shall give these humans the opportunity to prove themselves in proper combat before we claim their world. Meanwhile, billions of miles away, Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel Pioneer's Dream. She was a woman in her early 40s, with short brown hair and eyes that had seen the wonders of a dozen star systems. Her ship was part of humanity's expansion into the galaxy, mapping new worlds and making first contact with alien civilizations. Captain, Communications Officer James Liu called from his station. We're receiving a transmission on all frequencies. It's not like anything we've encountered before. Elena moved to stand behind Liu's chair. Can you translate it? The computer is working on it, but the language structure is completely unfamiliar. Wait, I'm getting something now. The bridge fell silent as an alien voice filled the air. The translation software worked to convert the sounds into English, though the words that emerged were formal and strange. Greetings, inhabitants of the world called Earth. I am Supreme War Chieftain Zexthor of the Kitherian Empire. We have observed your species and find you capable of bearing arms. According to ancient law and sacred tradition, we offer you the challenge of honor. Choose your finest warriors and meet us in proper combat. If you prove worthy, you may serve the Empire with dignity. If you fail, your world will be added to our dominion. You have 30 rotations of your planet to prepare. May your warriors die with honor. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Captain, Navigator Sarah Kim spoke up, her voice tight with concern. Our long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of the solar system. Whatever sent that message, they're not alone. Elena felt her blood run cold. She had been an officer in Earth's combined fleet during the colony wars, and she recognized a threat when she heard one. "James, get me a direct line to Earth Command. Priority Alpha." Within minutes, Elena found herself speaking directly to Admiral Marcus Chen, the head of Earth's Unified Defense Forces. The admiral was a man in his 60s with gray hair and a face that had been hardened by decades of military service. "Captain Vasquez," Admiral Chen's voice crackled through the communication system. "We've received similar transmissions across all our outer colonies. These Cytherians appear to be serious about their challenge." "Admiral, what are our options?" Elena asked. "We're calling an emergency session of the World Defense Council. Every nation, every military leader, every expert we have. If these aliens want to fight, they're going to get one they never expected." Back on the Eternal Conquest, War Chieftain Zexthor reviewed the intelligence reports about human military capabilities. What he read both amused and concerned him. The humans had no unified command structure, no single military doctrine, no consistent approach to warfare. Their ships were smaller and less advanced than Cytherian vessels. Their weapons were primitive energy beams and kinetic projectiles. Yet something in the reports troubled him. The humans had fought numerous wars among themselves, displaying a creativity and adaptability that seemed to defy logic. They used tactics that violated every principle of proper warfare. Yet somehow these chaotic methods had proven effective against their own kind. "War Chieftain," Battlemaster Krulthak reported, "the humans have responded to our challenge. Their message is unusual. Tell me." They said simply, "Challenge accepted. Come and try." Nothing more. Zexthor felt a stirring of something he had not experienced in many years, genuine curiosity. Most species either begged for mercy or attempted to negotiate. None had ever responded to a challenge of honor with such simple defiance. On Earth, the emergency meeting of the World Defense Council brought together military leaders from every nation. The Great Hall buzzed with dozens of languages as officers, scientists, and strategists shared information and debated responses. Admiral Chen stood at the center of it all, coordinating humanity's response to an unprecedented threat. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "we face an enemy that claims to have conquered nearly 1,000 star systems. Their technology is superior to ours, their numbers are overwhelming, and they appear to follow military traditions that go back thousands of years." General Maria Santos of the Brazilian Space Command raised her hand. "Admiral, what do we know about their tactics? According to our analysis of their transmissions and energy signatures, they favor large formations and coordinated attacks. Their approach appears to be highly disciplined and ceremonial. They seem to view warfare as an art form with specific rules and traditions." Colonel Yuki Tanaka of the Japanese Defense Force leaned forward. That could be their weakness. If they're locked into traditional thinking, they might not be prepared for unconventional responses. Admiral Chen nodded. "That's exactly what I was thinking. We can't match their technology or numbers, but we have something they might not expect: flexibility." The discussion continued for hours as Earth's military leaders developed a strategy unlike anything in human history. They would not fight the Cytherians according to alien rules. Instead, they would use every advantage that human creativity and adaptability could provide. As the 30-day deadline approached, both sides prepared for a confrontation that would determine the fate of humanity. The Cytherians moved their massive fleet toward Earth with the confidence of warriors who had never known defeat. They expected a traditional battle, ship against ship, formation against formation, following the ancient rules of honorable combat. The humans prepared something entirely different. They scattered their forces across the solar system, abandoned traditional fleet formations, and prepared to fight a war that would confuse and frustrate an enemy accustomed to predictable opponents. Neither side fully understood what they were about to unleash. The Kitharians had never faced an enemy that refused to follow the rules of warfare. The humans had never faced an enemy with such overwhelming technological superiority. As the two forces prepared to meet, the galaxy held its breath. This would be more than just another conquest for the Kitharian Empire. This would be a collision between two completely different philosophies of war, two incompatible ways of understanding conflict and victory. The stage was set for a battle that would change both species forever. Beacon on the hull of a Kitharian command vessel before her engines failed. "This is Kim," she broadcast on the emergency channel. "Package delivered. Initiating emergency protocol." Instead of trying to escape, Kim aimed her damaged fighter directly at the alien ship's communication array. The collision destroyed both vessels, but the beacon she had planted began transmitting data about Kitharian tactical frequencies directly to Earth Command. Admiral Chen watched the incoming intelligence with satisfaction. "Excellent work, Lieutenant. All units, we now have access to enemy tactical communications. Begin Phase 2 of Omega Protocol." Human ships throughout the system suddenly began moving in coordinated patterns that seemed to anticipate Kitharian movements. The aliens found themselves consistently outmaneuvered by forces that should have been inferior in every way. War Chieftain Zexthor realized his fleet was in serious trouble. The humans were fighting a completely different kind of war, one that his people had no experience with. Every time his commanders tried to respond according to traditional tactics, the enemy did something unexpected. War Chieftain Krulthak reported with barely concealed panic, "We have lost 17 ships and our formation cohesion is breaking down. The humans appear to be reading our tactical communications." "How is that possible?" Zexthor demanded. "Unknown, War Chieftain. But every time we issue orders, the enemy responds as if they know our intentions in advance." Zexthor made a decision that went against 3,000 years of Kitharian military tradition. All ships abandon formation discipline. Engage targets of opportunity. Fight as individual vessels. It was a desperate order, but the War Chieftain hoped that giving his captains more freedom would help them adapt to human tactics. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Kitharian ships that had trained for millennia to fight in coordinated formations suddenly found themselves isolated and vulnerable. Human forces, who had spent their entire military history learning to adapt to changing circumstances, took advantage of the confusion. Captain Elena Vasquez led her strike force in a series of hit-and-run attacks that picked off isolated alien vessels one by one. "All human forces," Admiral Chen announced, "the enemy formation is collapsing. Begin final phase of Omega Protocol." The final phase was the most audacious part of the human plan. Instead of trying to destroy the entire alien fleet, Earth's forces focused on capturing Kitharian command ships intact. Human Marines, trained for boarding actions in the asteroid belt conflicts, launched assault pods at alien flagships. The Kitharians had never faced enemies who fought at close quarters in the corridors of their own ships. Their warriors were powerful and skilled, but they were accustomed to formal duels with weapons and ceremony. Human Marines fought like animals, using every dirty trick and desperate tactic they had learned in centuries of warfare. Master Sergeant Jake Morrison led the assault on the Eternal Conquest itself. His team of 20 Marines fought their way through the alien ship's corridors using tactics that would have been considered dishonorable by Kitharian standards, but were perfectly normal for humans who had learned to fight for survival. War Chieftain Zexthor found himself face to face with the enemy leader in his own command chamber. The human was smaller than him, carrying primitive weapons, but his eyes held a determination that the War Chieftain had never seen before. "Surrender," Morrison said simply, pointing his weapon at the alien commander. "Your fleet is beaten." Zexthor looked around his bridge and saw human soldiers covering every station. His own warriors lay unconscious or dead, overwhelmed by enemies who fought without regard for honor or tradition. For the first time in his long life, the Supreme War Chieftain of the Kitharian Empire realized that his understanding of warfare was incomplete. These humans had shown him something he had never considered. That chaos could be a weapon, that unpredictability could defeat superior strength, and that flexibility could triumph over rigid discipline. "I yield," Zexthor said, setting down his ceremonial weapons. "You have fought with honor, though not in any way I understand." The news of the human victory spread through both fleets rapidly. The Kitherian Empire, undefeated for 3 millennia, had been stopped by a species that had barely learned to travel between stars. But something unexpected happened in the aftermath of the battle. Instead of demanding surrender or tribute, Admiral Chen opened communication channels between the two fleets. "War Chieftain Zexthor," the admiral said, "we've shown you our way of fighting. Perhaps now you'd like to show us yours. Not as enemies, but as allies learning from each other." The Omega Protocol unleashed. The Kitherian Armada emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system like a storm of metal and energy. 10,000 ships arranged themselves in perfect battle formations, their hulls gleaming in the light of Sol. Each vessel held its precise position according to traditions that had been refined over 3 millennia of conquest. On the bridge of the eternal conquest, Supreme War Chieftain Zexthor observed the human homeworld through his tactical displays. Earth appeared as a blue marble suspended in the void, defended by what seemed like a pitiful collection of small ships scattered randomly throughout the system. "War Chieftain," Battlemaster Krulthak reported, "we have catalogued the human defensive positions. They have approximately 400 ships spread across the system, with no apparent coordination between groups. Their largest vessels are less than half the size of our destroyers." Zexthor studied the tactical display with growing confusion. The human ships showed no formation discipline whatsoever. Some clustered near their homeworld. Others had positioned themselves near the outer planets, and still others drifted alone in the asteroid belt. It was chaos, the complete opposite of everything the Kitherians understood about proper warfare. "Perhaps they are paralyzed by fear," suggested War Master Vokthul, the fleet's tactical coordinator. "Many species lose all sense when they see our full strength." But Zexthor was not convinced. The humans had accepted the challenge of honor without hesitation. Species that surrendered easily did not respond with such confidence. There had to be something more to their scattered deployment. "Begin the ritual of first contact," the war chieftain ordered. "We shall see how these humans respond to proper battlefield ceremony." The Kitherian fleet began its traditional approach, a complex dance of ships that had intimidated countless civilizations. Vessels moved in precise patterns, weapon ports opened in synchronized waves, and energy displays painted magnificent colors across the void. It was a demonstration of power and discipline designed to crush enemy morale before the first shot was fired. On Earth, Admiral Marcus Chen watched the alien display from the command center buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Around him, officers from every nation monitored the approaching enemy fleet through a network of sensors and reconnaissance drones. "Admiral," Lieutenant Sarah Kim reported from her station, "the aliens are maintaining perfect formation. Their approach speed is constant, and they appear to be following some kind of ceremonial protocol." Admiral Chen nodded grimly. The enemy was behaving exactly as Earth's analysts had predicted. The Kitherians were locked into rigid thinking patterns that valued ceremony over effectiveness. "All units," Admiral Chen announced into his communicator, "implement Omega Protocol." "Repeat, Omega Protocol is now active." Across the solar system, human forces received the order they had trained for during the past 30 days. The Omega Protocol was not a weapon or a technology. It was a completely new approach to warfare that abandoned every traditional military concept in favor of pure unpredictability. Lieutenant Commander Elena Vasquez, now commanding a strike force of 12 ships near Jupiter, smiled grimly as she received the order. "All units, scatter formation. Implement random attack pattern 7. Remember, we're not trying to win ship-to-ship duels. We're trying to confuse an enemy that thinks they understand war." The human ships suddenly changed course, abandoning their seemingly random positions to attack the Cytherian fleet from directions that violated every principle of space combat. Small fighters dove through the alien formations, targeting sensor arrays and communication equipment, rather than trying to destroy larger vessels. Battlemaster Krulifak stared at his tactical display in disbelief. War Chieftain, the human ships are attacking our sensor platforms. They appear to be deliberately targeting non-critical systems. Zexthor watched the human assault with growing frustration. The enemy fighters were too small and fast for his heavy weapons, and their attacks made no sense according to proper tactical doctrine. Instead of trying to destroy his largest ships, they were hampering his fleet's ability to coordinate. All battle groups, maintain formation discipline, he ordered. Execute pattern Alpha 7 to eliminate the small craft. The Cytherian ships began to respond according to their ancient tactical programming, but their movements were slow and predictable. Human pilots who had learned to fly in chaotic environments found gaps in the alien formations that their enemies had never considered. Lieutenant Sarah Kim led a squadron of fighters on a dive through the center of the alien fleet. Her ship took multiple hits, but she managed to plant. Zexthor, sitting in custody aboard his own flagship, felt something he had never experienced before: respect for an enemy who had defeated him fairly. The humans had not just won through superior tactics. They had shown him that there was more than one way to understand the art of war. "Admiral Chen," he replied, "my people have conquered many worlds, but we have learned nothing new in 1,000 years. Your species fights with imagination. Perhaps it is time for the Cytherian Empire to learn new ways of thinking." The battle that had begun as a challenge between two civilizations ended as the beginning of an alliance that would change the galaxy. The Cytherians learned human adaptability and creativity. The humans learned Cytherian discipline and technological mastery. Together, they would face challenges that neither species could have overcome alone. The galaxy would never be the same, and both civilizations would be stronger for having met each other in battle and discovered that true strength came not from rigid adherence to tradition, but from the willingness to learn, adapt, and grow. The Omega Protocol had been more than just a military strategy. It had been humanity's gift to the galaxy, the understanding that there was always another way to solve any problem if you were willing to think beyond the boundaries of what had been done before.